Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. During the question and answer session, please press star 1 on your touch-tone phone. Today's conference is being recorded. If anyone has any objection, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to introduce Ms. Deborah Nurkin.
Thank you, Stacy. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Tech Talk on IBM Operational Decision Manager version 8.5.1 Delta Workshop. Our presenter today is Yoko Hakuna. This presentation addresses the new features and enhancements that are introduced in IBM Operational Decision Manager version 8.5 and 8.5.1. Yoko is a certified IT specialist and consultant with the ISSW IBM Software Services for WebSphere Partner Practices. As a consultant, her main role is to enable IBM business partners and customers to integrate various systems by providing on-the-job technical mentoring. Yoko has 15 years of experience in software development, one of which are with WebSphere products. Prior to joining the consulting team, Yoko developed a number of curriculum for WebSphere education and taught courses worldwide. We are very pleased to have Yoko with us today and appreciative of her time to take us through this discussion. I do want to remind everyone that, as the operator noted, this call is being recorded, so if you have an objection, please feel free to hang up at this time. We are going to be putting the replay up on Partner World for our business partners in a few weeks, as well as internally for IBMers in the media library. With respect to questions you may have or develop during the presentation, we are planning to take them both during and at the end of the session, and we'll answer any questions posted to the chat area. With respect to the chat area of the webcast, please direct your questions to all so that everyone can see what that question might be. Currently, everyone's line is muted right now, so we'll prompt you when we're ready for questions. Yoko, we're ready, so I'll hand the presentation over to you.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good almost afternoon for those of you who are on the East Coast. Let me quickly share my screen so that I can present it through my machine. It might be loading up right now. Can everybody see my screen? Probably won't be able to hear you anyway. Okay, so let us know if you don't see the screen. I'm sharing the PowerPoint that I'm using for today's presentation. If you don't see it, type in the chat so maybe Debbie can help or shout out so that I will stop and wait for the screen to load for you guys. So let's get started. So today we are going to just quickly, this whole purpose of today's presentation is to introduce you the new ODM version 8.5 as well as version 8.5.1. So I do assume that many of you have basic understanding of ODM products, and hopefully many of you have worked with ODM version 7.5 or ODM version 8.0. The purpose is to enable you guys to understand the new features, where we are heading, and what are the business value that this new version will provide to our customers, ODM customers. So I'm not going to go over details about what this ODM product is all about. I'm going to focus on what is new, what's the selling point of the new versions. So here's the agenda page. If you don't quite see the screen, I'm going through the second page of my presentation. First, I'm going to quickly go through what's new in ODM version 8.5 and version 8.5.1. So many of you probably know that 8.5.1 is the latest release of ODM that just came out during the holiday season. I believe it was November 29th that it was released. So I quickly added what's new in 8.5. Originally, I was going to just talk about 8.5, but there are some new improvements that were introduced in 8.5.1. So we are going to talk about latest and greatest of the ODM. And decision governance framework. This is the key new enhancements that were introduced in version 8.5. So I'm going to talk about, first section, I'm going to briefly talk about what is decision governance framework and everything else. And I'll go a little bit more detail and talk about terminology that associated with decision governance framework. And I will do a quick demo because I think by seeing that how actually product works will help you understand the capabilities and business value. So I'll do the demo, and then we'll jump into rule editor improvements. And also we are going to talk about REST interface to execute rules and Worklight adapters. So because mobile devices are getting more and more common into making our business work easier and better. So REST interface and Worklight adapters, those are another area that IBM is putting effort into. So I'll talk about all this. As you can see, as you can imagine, we have a lot to talk about, and I do want to spend time doing the demo. So I would like to probably try my best to cover everything that I want to talk about and pause at the end to answer all your questions, because I may go back and forth. What's new section, I might talk about REST interface and Worklight, but I'm not going to go into the detail. And so I want you guys to just be patient with me. And so I'll try to answer all your questions at the end. Okay, let's get started. So hopefully many of you have already seen this model process diagram. Hopefully it's not the first time you're seeing this. It's been used many places. So IBM, key IBM capabilities for smarter process, we do have many industry expertise, industry content packs for telecom and so on. And then we do the core capabilities in the smarter process is to how we make the business to be automated and work efficiently. So BPM will provide the ability to navigate, automate your process integration and business processes, business flows, and case management. FileNet will provide a case management service. But those two products don't, many of the parts in the business process, you could really leverage the business rules, because in our business there's so many points that we could determine our service outcome based on a certain set of business rules. So that's where ODM provide coming to the picture into this smarter process. ODM makes it easier to define the business decisions and the business policies. That is, so it's really good companion to BPM and case management. And I'll mention a little bit, briefly mention about IIB. So SOA and integration piece is really provided by IBM Integration Bus, but I'll mention briefly how these connect to ODM later on. And so putting the smart in smarter process, the ODM, Operational Decision Manager, really, so nowadays data could come in from many different places. Like we have mobile devices, we have internet, and so on. So it becomes more and more important for business to automate the decision making based on those inputs for internet speed, as it says on this slide. And also, we're no longer doing traditional C++ or Java development. We're talking about business. So typically, IT people don't necessarily come with the business knowledge because that's not their core job. But line of business, they're the people who understands the trend and what should be the business strategy. So IT and business people, they really need to be able to collaborate and communicate well. And so that integrates operational decision across line of business and IT is another important piece. And also insightfulness. In order to better serve our customers, we need to be able to kind of pinpoint, narrow down how we can customize the service to the customer to particular need for their particular need. Those of you who have, maybe some of you may have worked with dynamic form. It's a good example of that. Like for instance, for insurance, based on what kind of car the customer used, the age, whatnot. By asking those questions based on the customer's input, you will narrow down what kind of product you will offer. So ODM really puts those smart in a smarter process. So that's why ODM is getting more and more attention nowadays, right? This, again, I'm going to go through this quickly because this is more like a review, and many of you already know that. But ODM really have two parts. Oh, by the way, so those of you who maybe haven't looked at ODM in a while, so we used to call it WODM, WODM. So ODM is a new naming. We just dropped the WebSphere brand name. But so ODM has decision center piece and decision server. Decision server is really the piece that will provide you the rule execution and event execution runtime. Right? We have rule designer and event designer. That's where IT people come and initial design of the rules and deploy onto the decision server. And also, we'll talk about different device integration on the decision server side later in this presentation. Then decision center, top part of it, is really what gives you more of the governance capabilities. IBM has been putting more effort into this portion of it, so we'll talk a little bit more in detail. But this is where you have a repository to maintain the rules and all the data associated with it, and allow the user, mostly the business users, to manage the artifacts and rule assets through Decision Center, Business Console, and Enterprise Console. So before we go to further, just talk about quick history about ODM. ODM, back in 2011, the first version of WebSphere Operational Decision Management version 7.5 was really to combine the two products. We have iLog Rules products, and also we have WebSphere Business Event products. So what IBM has done is to merge those two products, right? Because they really complement each other. One focus on deciding how to react or how to determine the outcome of business. The business event side will react to the incoming events. So those two products merged together, and that was our very first ODM offerings back in 2011, and we provided native support for Z. And then last year, 2012, ODM 8.0 came out, and also ODM 8.01 came about. And when ODM 8.01 came out, that's when we kind of changed the name from WODM to ODM. But IBM really put a lot of emphasis on the management capability for business users. And this is 8.0 was the first release, that IBM introduced the business console for Decision Center and provided the more like a collaborative capabilities so that you can keep track of all the communications and comments about during the business rule change and modifications and so on. And also introduce additional management capability to allow parallel management cycle so that different teams work on different branches of repository to deliver the contents. Okay. And another exciting thing back in version 8.0 was that we finally offer ODM on Pure system. So, and they also provided significant improvements on ODM running on Z. Okay, so that was up until ODM version 8. And hopefully, many of you have worked with 8.0 or at least have heard or kind of took some basic, have a basic understanding of ODM version 8.0. So today, what we are going to talk about is ODM 8.5 and also 8.5.1. Okay, so there are many exciting improvements that were introduced in 8.5 and 8.5.1. Okay, so we now do offer ODM virtual application patterns, and also we are going to talk about decision governance framework. Okay, this is the probably the major enhancements came out in 8.5. So this is where I'm going to talk a lot more, and I'll do demo later on. And also we do have a REST interface to work with rule, so that the REST interface allow us to integrate with Worklight. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end. I'll talk about some sample applications of ODM integrated with Worklight. So Worklight is where we provide mobile applications to our customers. So it's really exciting to have Worklight and ODM work together. Okay. And also for Z, we have a support for PL1 language. And another major piece is native IIB integration. IIB stands for IBM Integration Bus, basically the new name for message broker. So we are going to talk about all this. So we'll have many things to cover. So let's get started. Okay. Business rules on the go. RESTful API is now available to invoke rule executions. So it becomes a lot simpler and easier to enable an application to execute rules, especially later towards the end of this presentation. I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about Worklight adapter for ODM. Okay, so the REST API will make it easier for us to have mobile device invoke rules. So that's another new features that is available. And we'll talk more. Okay, so right now I'm just gonna go over. So because everything is still new, right? Worklight is relatively new, and REST API for rules is new. Therefore, the ODM 8.5 comes with sample applications. So we have mobile adapter for Worklight, and I'll show you where you can get this sample and how you can look at the code, and that would be a good starting point to play with Worklight and ODM, how you can build or when you can take advantage of Worklight talking to ODM. executing rules. And decision governance framework, again, we'll talk more and more detail later on. But in general, so large organizations, they have tons and tons of rules that may go through changes constantly, because the advantage of the power of business rules is that you can make a decision, you can make a determination, and at the speed of what the market trend is, like the things like what would be the promotional discount rate should be, little things like that. Everything will be changing in the rule world. So large organization, especially industry like insurance companies, they will have hundreds and hundreds of rules, and they will be changing based on the requirements change. And also, you need to, so because of that, even small organizations, right, they will definitely go through different rule needs to be changed, but they can't simply, nobody can really afford to design their own governance process of those changing rules. So it really comes down to it is that ODM product itself has to provide out-of-box change management capabilities. So that's what the decision governance framework is all about. So for instance, when I do the demo, we'll step through how you're gonna start a project, how you're gonna create new release, and so on. So bear with me. I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. So what decision governance framework gives you is that you don't have to worry about. It's almost impossible to use things like subversions or clear case to keep track of change of the rules. It's not a Java code that we are talking about. It's a business rule, right? So decision governance framework gives you out-of-box change management capabilities. So you don't really need to do any additional configurations. It is part of the product as of 8.5. So you will see the decision center to be a little bit different from version 8, or definitely different from 7.5. And you will have a capabilities to create a new release, right? Because we may have new release every quarters or every year, whatever the frequency is. So it gives you a place to create a new release, and you can document that, and you can set up deadlines, so on. And you will create role management activities, so that's how you keep track of the change that you are going to make to the rules. For instance, you create a new release and new development rule change taking place, and you can specify who needs to approve the change, and who needs to do the test, and so on. So it really gives you a place to define those change activities, and gives you a place to document the change and the purpose of the change. Is the bug fix that needs to be changed, or it's just a new region addition, whatnot. So this decision governance framework, it gives you a way to document and navigate through, assign specific user to be the approver, owner, or tester, and so on. Okay, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because it's a little bit confusing without seeing that demo. So I'll do the demo, but you will see that you will have that slide. You will have this presentation. So after the demo, when you come back and look through some of the screen captures, it might make better sense to you. But what really is that you create release, each release, whatever the change you're gonna have to make, you will control it through what we call change activity. And we do have a timeline to see when and who made a change, what kind of change to the rules, who approved, who tested, and so on. So timeline is another nice way to see the history of the change that particular release went through. And so we do have, it automatically creates snapshots and to keep track of when, who made a change to the rules. And also nice enhancements is that when you make a change to the rule, you can compare. You can compare the change between the current version to the previous version or whatever, that two different versions of the rules to see what has been changed. And that this comparison supports decision table as well. So it is really nice. Just look at it and compare in a side-by-side format will help you to understand what change has been made to a particular rule. And again, I will show you in a demo. So decision governance framework, the benefit really, it's ready to go. As I said, you don't have to do any setup after the product installation. It's already as part of the product. It comes out of the box. So you don't have to worry about how we're going to keep track of all the change that you're going to make to the rules. And it's easy to learn. So this decision governance framework is part of the business console. So it has to be usable. It's easy to use for the business audience, the people who's going to be really spending a lot more time with the roles after the deployment. So it's easy to use and it's flexible, and it's designed to adapt small and large projects and complete visibility to all the change. So like the timeline that I briefly mentioned about, it will give you the one-shot big picture about what has been changed, what has been audited, and you will be able to do the comparison. So you will get to see. So the really decision governance framework, the first version of decision governance framework was introduced in version 8.5, and 8.5.1, the November release, made further improvements on that. So when 8.5 came out, decision governance framework was working, but they had a little bit of buggy or not perfectly user-friendly portion to it. So 8.5.1 fixed many of that. So when I do the demo, I'll show you 8.5.1 ODM version 8.5.1 demo, so that you will get to see what's available as a part of Business Console, how you can get started on managing the rule changes that you're making. And PL1 language support for Z customers, ZOS customers. The challenge was that PL1 is commonly used programming language on Z, especially particularly popular in Europe. So until now, we really didn't have simple solution to modernize PL1 based assets and bring the level of automation to today's business operation. So IBM 8.5 introduced PL1 language support so that enable PL1 ZOS customers to leverage the power and flexibility of ODM. and modernize their PL1 application. It's really there isn't there really isn't a vendor that supports this level of support on the rule. That this really is the differentiator for IBM. To just quickly give you what it is that so PL1 language support, the enhancements that was introduced is now in a rule designer. You can just import PL1 include file, such as the interface file for PL1, and import that in, and it'll generate BOM files. So, and then after that, you can design and start building your rules, just like any other rules using BOM file. So that's the enhancements were made in ODM for Z systems. Deployment options, so you can deploy onto WAS on Z or ZRES. So you may ask, so why should we care about selling ODM on System Z? Like I mentioned earlier, we are the really only one in the market offering this level of coverage on Z. This just briefly mentioned, but there are so many lines of COBOL and PL1 code in the world, and it's still growing 5% yearly. And therefore, we should really care supporting those customers, and we still do have companies who need that rule capabilities, and they're really their core skills are on Z, and in order to support this, is really making us win some of these engagements, win some of the bid. Okay. And I'm not gonna necessarily go through this, but so this is why. So again, I'm gonna quickly go through a little bit more. So so there's still some System Z customers that do not have experience with WAS on Z. So being able to deploy new workloads like ODM in a KICS region or natively on Z OS has great appeal to those customers. And first, it leverages their in-house skills, right, the skills they already have, and then co-locate the rules workload next to the applications that needs them, eliminates the networking overhead, providing fastest possible connection between the applications that needs rules. COBOL copybook is a piece of code that historically has been used to maintain consistent data layout between programs, and tools with IBM for System Z allow these encrypted data description to be imported into ODM. So that makes it helps the mapping between COBOL copybook to ODM vocabulary helps speed the development of rules, because they can just work with it straight, and they just import and extract the data in production and start writing the rules. And again, so this is for Z. And KICS Value Unit Edition, okay, VUE. So this is basically the new pricing option for KICS on System Z. Typically, KICS workloads are priced using what we call matrix, called monthly license charges. Okay. So KICS VUE is new one-time charge price matrix, and it was announced last year at the Impact. It basically provides a Java execution environment for new workloads, And ODM for System Z qualify for this new pricing and help attract new customers, since this one-time charge pricing is more attractive than monthly license charges. So those are the ODM on System Z. And and then ODM application patterns. So now ODM pattern is available on the PureApplication systems. I don't know how many of you heard PureApplication. It started out a little bit slow coming up in the market, but now finally PureApplications is another area that IBM is putting effort into. Okay. Pure system, it gives you scaling policy that to automatically detect, so that it will automatically increase the resource as needed. Okay. So it's really powerful solution. PureApplication, it's really powerful solutions, but it's, from what I heard, it's really expensive. But being able to provide ODM application pattern on PureApplication, it makes it easier for those IBM customers to just install and create the environment for ODM. And they just use the web client to drop and drag components to create the ODM runtime environment. So this will give rapid expansion of ODM through your company with customizable patterns. And so this year you may hear more and more PureApplication related topics presentation coming out from IBM. And right now you probably hear more about PureApplications and BPM patterns. Hopefully ODM patterns on PureApplication will start getting more attention. And again, so when you go to ODM 8.5 Info Center, it does talk about ODM patterns. So you can, if you are going to work with PureApplications, you can read more detail in Info Center. And then another new feature is increased enterprise integration. So those of you who haven't heard, or I hope many of you have heard IIB already, IIB stands for IBM Integration Bus. This is nothing but just a new name for WebSphere Message Broker. So IIB version 9 is the new message broker release. And the problem is that many high-performance message-driven applications are decision-intensive, but message broker is really not meant to do the rule, right? It's not a rule engine per se, so it was lacking that feature. Therefore, it's a nice collaboration to have IIB and ODM talking to each other. But if message broker had to talk to ODM through web service invocation, then it can be quickly become performance can be slow, or performance can be suffer because of that. So what they've done in message broker, they introduced support pack. So in order, if you want to work with ODM, if you want to be able to execute rules from message broker, you have to get the support pack in order to do so. And so now, as a solution, IIB version 9 introduced high performance in the bus ODM integration. Let me see if I have one more slide. Okay. So this is not necessarily ODM side, but this is what comes as a part of IIB. And so, as I mentioned, back in version 8 of Message Broker, you had to have what this slide says, IAM 9 support pack. You had to get the support pack in order to work with ODM. But IIB version 9 displays the support pack, the requirements, or I should say need for the support pack in order to work with ODM. Okay, so now IIB has IIB Embedded Decision Service. So it's new. It's nice integration. You can just use existing tools to author and deploy simple business rules, and really improves the integration with decisions authoring ODM tooling. So again, if you don't really work with Message Broker or IIB, you may not really see this, but this is another big enhancements that were introduced in ODM. I should say not necessarily ODM, but ODM, the bigger ODM world. Okay, so as you can see, as a part of smarter process offering, IBM is trying to integrate all those nice products and to talk to each other more seamlessly. So I know I'm going through very quickly, but some of those things that I've mentioned already, I'll repeat it later because I would like to go a little bit more deep dive on some of the topics. So now, what I have mentioned so far was something new going from ODM version 8 to version 8.5. And version 8.5.1 is just released on November 29th last year. So when you guys are having Thanksgiving holiday and getting ready for Christmas shopping and stuff like that. So that's when ODM 8.5.1 came out. Pretty much all the core major enhancements were introduced in 8.5. So 8.5.1 kind of added further improvements onto those new features introduced in 8.5. Business Console, the Decision Center Business Console is available on all supported application servers. Installer has changed, so I'll talk about that. And progressive migration of Decision Center database, we'll talk about that. And also decision engine on distributed system, decision governance framework enhancements on top of what we have already introduced in 8.5. Some of the little glitch was fixed. Some of the not so user friendliness was fixed in 8.5.1. Further improvements on the Z platform were made in 8.5.1. So as you can see, just by looking at it, just one shot, most of the stuff were already there in 8.5, but 8.5.1 further made fixes to some of those areas that were lacking. And so we'll talk about some of these. First, installation. If you have done any of the installation, I have. Installation takes a long time, right, on those products. And 8.5.1, if you do the installation through GUI, when you launch the ODM installation launchpad, you will no longer see the standalone server option. And so on the top on this screen, this is the version 8.5. It looks pretty much the same as previous release, but 8.5.1, if you run the installation launchpad of 8.5.1, you don't see standalone server options. Okay, so what you're gonna do instead is from Launchpad, just go ahead and select Custom Installation, and then select Profile Templates for WAS. So, and then also, so basically what's being done is just doing this way. They significantly improved the installation process. So installation, I've done installation myself just to see what's new in 8.5.1. It installs faster than before, and also it's easy, as easy as before. Just I expect it to take longer because I'm used to older releases, but it installs pretty quickly, and so it's there. If you What the engineering team says is the reason why we removed the standalone server portion of it is, in reality, no customers really use that options anyway. Only people use the standalone server option was probably us, like people like us, or tech sales people who has to firsthand go out to customer and do the demo or show them how things work. But it's really, real customers really don't use standalone profiles anyway. And especially like when you're setting up the real environments, right? You will have decision center on one machine. Decision server will be on a separate node, right? So it was really not necessary to have standalone installation options because nobody was using it. And also by doing this profile template option, that it gives users an easier way to install ODM on a supported WAS and or supported WAS platform. And I think, okay. So another improvement for part of this installation process is that so during the installation, the installer no longer logs those admin passwords and admin passwords into the installation manager registry files. If you remember from previous installation, when you do the installation, before start installing, it will ask you the admin username and password that you want to use, right? And then IBM will say that after the installation, we recommend you to change the password because the password, which is a sensitive data, gets logged into the installation manager registry files. So we recommended that you, after installation complete, go ahead and change the password. But as of 8.5.1, there is no need to do so. Okay, so those sensitive data that was admin password is no longer logged. So I've done the installation myself, and it's pretty simple, same as before. It's no brainer. It's simple to use and simple to do the installation, but significantly faster. I did the installation on Windows 7, and it took less time to install. And so another enhancements, they introduced progressive migration and task to migrate the older decision center database. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you will execute the ant task called that ant gem prog migration script with all the options. So this X portion that you see in the screen, I hope you see my little dot. Okay. So this and when you execute the end task, this XX should be one of those. If you are trying to migrate Decision Center repository database from version 7, then it's 7.0, 7.1, 7.5, or 8.0. So those are the supported version number that you can use in place of this XX portion to do that database migration. The parameters here, these are the parameters that you will use with this migration script. Username, password, server URL, and data source name, and all database schema names. So database schema name that were used in the previous data source. And project, so this is where you list the rule projects that are ready to migrate. So it would be something like and gen-prog migration, maybe 7.5 scripts, and all schema name is equal to all schema name, and project name you will provide my insurance 1, my project 2, and so on. So again, this progressive migration end task, Info Center provides detailed information on this. So if you are going to be working with a customer who's been already using rules, and they wish to migrate the database, and this is the end task to allow you to do so. So ODM 8.5.1, you will see this, maybe not so much, but 8.5.1. So now Decision Engine is available for all distributed systems. So you might say, what? What is Decision Engine? So Decision Engine was first introduced in version 8.0.1 for ZRES. Okay, so it was really meant to support those DOS customers to work with rules. And then version 8.5 extended to REST running on Boisson Z again. So Decision Engine, so initial intent was to provide better support, better performance for DOS customers. And now, so 8.5.1, IBM extended the support Decision Engine onto distributed system. So to look at this diagram, probably it's easier to understand. So the classic rule engine, or the rule engines that we have been normally working with, is you write the business rules in the rule designer, and so it will compile rule level textual rules, ilog rule language. So now that becomes rule set archive file, the JAR file, and then it has to be, when you load the rules, it has to be parsed and compiled, and then generate partial bytecode, and then Java class loading, and then execute. So Decision Center compiles a rule to intermediate code, and that intermediate code, and it becomes, the rule archive file is DSAR, and that becomes that will generate at the loading time, it needs to be bytecode needs to be generated, and Java bytecode needs to be generated and executes. So and then rule designer side, I'll show you another screen capture talking about all those different options. But when you author the rules in rule designer, there is an option, property settings, to decide whether you want to just keep working with classic rule engine or decision engine. What it does underneath the cover is when you write the rules and compile, it will do decision algorithm optimization and generate Java bytecode. And again, the archive DSAR gets generated and then executes. So what it really does is it really improves the performance, because as you can see, at the loading time, you don't have to parse and compile the code anymore. It's already there. And so it really improves the performance. It improves the rule set loading and reduce memory consumptions and increase the scalability, improve compilation time. So compile and optimize the code. And so Decision Engine has most capabilities of the classic rule engine that we are familiar with, how things were carried out, although there are some differences in their implementations. And I would really encourage you to, I should have included here, but they are still, just like anything else, Decision Engine is still work in progress, right? So there are quite few limitations. All the limitations are listed in Info Center. Let me see. Okay, I didn't put it. I hope this is gonna improve as we move on to the next ODM release. But as of today, for instance, if you use, let me go through this. So when you are in Rule Designer, okay, if you right-click on your rule project and select Properties, and there is Rule Set Build Mode, when you go here, you will see Classic Rule Engine and Decision Engine options. If you want to use the Decision Engine that I just mentioned about, okay, then you have to select the Decision Engine radio button, and that would change how it compiles the rules, okay, based on the Decision Engine. But by default, rule set build mode is set to Classic Rule Engine. Okay, you might wonder why. How come seems like a Decision Engine? What I mentioned about sounds wonderful, right? Improves and reduce the memory footprint and everything. But so why don't we just go ahead and make that Decision Engine as a default? So the reason is why the default still use Classic Rule Engine is there's still some features that are not yet supported by the Decision Engine. So because of that, they are the default is Classic Rule Engine. So here is another screen capture. So in a Rule Designer, when you do the Export Rule Set Archive, you can select, there is option to do select Optimize Rule Set Loading and do so. So as I mentioned, so here it says Decision Center can only generate intermediate code, and bytecode has to be generated at runtime. That I hope the screen is loading fine. So in this previous slide that I mentioned about, that this is the Decision Center portion of it when you do that rule change. Here the difference between Rule Designer portion, compilation portion, and Decision Center is that you can see that Decision Center will generate bytecode, and while here it will just go ahead and do Java bytecode. The reason is that in order to generate Java bytecode, it has to have the DOM. So obviously, when you're developing from rule designer, you have full access to DOM, so you can do so. And Decision Center can only generate intermediate code. So I'm gonna skip through this particular slide because it's just straight out of, I just copy and paste it from Info Center, but it just kind of compare the difference between classic rule engine and decision engine. The main part of it though, decision engine, it no longer converts bound rules to IRL, meaning business application language, business action language to ILOG rule language. So as I mentioned earlier, I strongly encourage you to just look at the ODM 8.5.1 Info Center. Just do the search for decision engine. You will find a portion that lists out all the limitation. I guess because of the limitation, the default is still set to classic rule engine. For instance, with rule in decision engine options, okay, you cannot use when you do the test, DVS is not supported, decision validation service is not supported. So the rule designer actually comes with some samples. I'll show you, when I do the demo, I'll show you the sample console, but it will kind of give you a little tutorial about how you can write a Java application to test your rules. So hopefully the future release will have the full support for DBS. Until all the limitation, it's not being able to test with DBS is major. It's a big limitation. So hopefully when they improve in the next release, DBS will be fully supported even with the decision engine options. Then probably they will make the rule designer to go ahead and use decision engine by default. But as of today, okay, 8.5.1, not 8.5, 8.5.1, decision engine support is new, and so there are still many areas of improvements that needs to be done. So I know I'm going through very quickly, but let me jump into decision governance framework because I already mentioned a little bit. And so after I go through some of the terminology, go through quickly, then I'm going to jump into the demo. Then that's where you can really tie in the concept with what I'm talking about. So decision governance framework provides comprehensive out-of-box set of change management capabilities, as I mentioned earlier. So some of the terminology that you kind of need to get used to. Okay, the how decision service framework handles change management is that we have to kind of get used to the new terminology called decision service. Okay, so decision service is basically the unit of work to monitor the rule project. Because in reality, you could have multiple rule projects that are targeted to do one business task, right? I mean, in reality, you could have multiple rule projects that are kind of depend on each other. Okay, so decision service will kind of give you a unit of work or kind of packaging for that particular entire release for that rule project. So decision service basically will give you on what level you want to start managing any change that you are going to make to any of the business rules. So when you're working with decision service framework, first thing you're gonna do is to create decision service, and then after that you will have the full capability to manage and track and trace any changes that are going to be made to your rules. So decision service is one of the terminology, and I will show you how to create decision service, and then release. So you will create release like any release name you need to. You have a code name, whatever. So this is basically kind of like a software release name. You create a release and attach that decision service to that particular release. For instance, I'm working on auto insurance rules project, and it's being tested, ready to go, and deployed. And then, like, there is a new defect or business requirement whatsoever that you need to create new release or branch off of it, and then based on the base release, you can create another release so that you can branch off and start working on bug fix or whatever needs to be done, and for that particular unit of work, group of decision rule project called decision service. Okay, so it's basically any change that you're working on, you just kind of manage it as a release. Okay. And you will create what we call change activity, meaning this is where you will have documentation about what kind of change that you are going to make to your role project, why and purpose of it. So it will first you create decision service, then you will create release, attach decision service to the release, and when you're ready to start working on the new target release, you will create change activity. That will be your documentation to any change that you're going to make. Also, validation activity is basically the testing. Keep track of what testing needs to be done before you approve the particular release and ready to ship it and ready to go. So, decision service, release, change activity, validation activities, those are the new terminology you will hear. So I have screen capture for that. So I already mentioned that. So decision service will be the decision service is basically the unit of work, nothing but just a group of role projects that are kind of goes together, depend on each other. And when you create release for that decision service, you will start keep track of the change and what validation phase has been taken, and who tested it, and who approved the change. So in another way, so decision service framework is the governance piece so that you can trace and audit all the changes that your role project will go through. Implementation based on role project branches. So a release is, technically speaking, it's just a sub branch of the main core already completed release branch. And change activity is sub branch of the release branch, and it contains more detail about what you're going to make and purpose of it. And change from completed change activities are automatically merged to the release branch. And so I'll show you all these. And another key point is content merge from one release to another is performed through Enterprise Console. So I know I'm going through this pretty quickly because I will do the demo and show it to you anyway. So in order to work with decision service framework, you mainly work in Business Console. Okay, because this is where you really want to have collaboration with the whole rest of the team. So Business Console is where you have the full capabilities of change management. Here, business users participate in change activities or validation activities, auditing, approve, whatnot. And then Enterprise Console portion is for more like administrative role, and you can manage and merge branches, and you can create and deploy role apps. So those portion is pretty much the same as before. Run test suites and simulation and so on. So that portion is the same. But so both Business Console and Enterprise Console, you will see additional menus because of the introduction of Decision Service Framework. And Decision Service. Oh, okay, so this is again to kind of put it together in a nice format to make sense. So if your pricing rule project has a dependency to things like a global pricing, coverage pricing, and so on, based on best practice, right? The best practice about role project authoring, they would say, don't try to put everything in single role project and whatever they consider reusability and so on. So typically, role projects will have multiple role projects that associate with your particular project, ODM project that you are working on. You're just going to go ahead and make that top level as decision service. You mark it, and then it will wrap the whole thing as a unit of work, meaning decision service. And again, I'll show you how you define that. It's simply in Role Designer, you right-click on the top level role project, and like a pricing that I mentioned about. And in the property, there's a decision service menu, and you just select the checkbox for this option, handle this project as a decision service. And that's it. And then you just go ahead and synchronize with the decision center. That's all you need to do. And release. So I'm going to go through this quickly because I'll do that in a demo. So release once you have your decision service created and deploy, all you're going to do is you can start working with your decision service. And in the Business Console, you can create release, give a name and who's the owner, and due date. When do you need to release that particular release? Version 1 release, version 101, or summer release, whatnot. So this is where you can define approvers and so on. And again, I will show you all this. So I'm pushing the time, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Okay, I'm going to mention this in a demo. So change activity is similar to creating release. You will define, this is where you keep track of all the documentation. You can define what's the purpose of the change activity. Is it bug fix? Who needs to make a change and who needs to approve it? Okay. Again, I'll show you in a demo. So change activity view. You can create a snapshot, or it'll automatically merge the change. So it will automatically create the new snapshot for you. And so when you enable decision service framework, you will see this work widget, which was not existed in version 8. So this is the new. This is where you're gonna work with the change management and validation activities. Okay, so I would like to go ahead and jump into the demo portion of it. Let me double check and make sure everything's the same. Okay, so let me switch over to so I do have my environment on a VMware image, so I hope it loads to the screen correctly. Let me know if you have a problem seeing my screen. It could be my resolution.
Yoko, this is Debbie. It is coming up.
Okay, so I'll give a little bit.
For anyone on the call that is not seeing it, just let us know. Please remember that this is being recorded, so if you can't follow along with the demo online, then you will be able to see it when it is available at the replay.
Thank you. So, yeah, I hope it shows fine. So this is here, I am showing Rule Designer. Okay, so I have sample applications, rule projects. So mine is, I want to create decision service. Again, decision service is the unit that I want to manage as a whole. Whatever the change I'm making, my insurance rule, this is a rule project that I want to keep track of any change that I'm going to make. So right click and select the properties, and that's all you have to do, and select decision service option. By default, okay, by default, here, decision service option is not selected. This is because just like good old ways to work with it. So decision service option in the properties for your rule project, select the handle this project and its dependency as a decision service in Decision Center. You select that option and click on OK. That's all you have to do. Okay. And then you will connect to the Decision Center. So, and now I have a create a new project in Decision Center option. So I will go through next. And so I do have another rule project that I want to add as a dependent project. So this is, I have just a simple sample application, simple rule projects that I don't see that many complexity. But so this is where you can decide, you can define the unit of work. So I'm gonna say yes, finished. For instance, if you already have a rule projects that are being already synchronized, published to Decision Center, and you want to make it as a decision service, and all you have to do is to again, right-click on the properties, and then select it as a decision service, and just do republish. You just come right-click and decision center, and then synchronize with decision center. So even if initially you upload it without the decision service option, that's fine. You can still set that decision service option and just do synchronization after that. Okay, so let me first, I know I have some browser has issues working with. Hope this shows a little bit better for you guys. So let me see. So this is the enterprise console portion of it, okay? Not the business console, but I just wanted to show you. So now, as of 8.5, because of the decision service framework introduction, you will see the two different options. Work on a project, this is what you traditionally saw. That's what we used to do. Now you see work on the decision service option. You select that, and because I just created my insurance rules as a decision service, I will see my options here. Okay, and the rest is pretty much the same. So now, because I looked at it, I know for sure that I have my rule project as decision service. Don't know why it's taking a long time, but that's okay. I have another browser. So this is, now I'm going to Business Console. I'm gonna log in as So what I'm going to do is to demonstrate how you can use the decision service framework and start managing any rule change that you are going to make. Okay. So as you can see, before you only saw home and library. Now you see work widgets. This is new. So once you log in, let's say you don't see this work options, that means you are still looking at in a classic view. So you select your username and go mode. And so mode switch, this is where you say, I want to work with Business Console in governance mode, or you can say rule project mode. This is basically what you guys are used to. Okay, this is the version 8 Node Business Console. But because I want to keep tracking of my rule project, I want to work in governance mode. Okay. So because I changed the mode, it will remember the next time I log in, log out, and log in, it remembers that I want to work with Business Console in governance mode. So now here I go into library, and now I see my insurance rules that I just synchronize. So this one, initial release, as you see, it's completed. Typically, you will start off new release, branch off from the core that you have. So here, simply create new release. I want to say release 101. And here you start working more and more, you will see different versions or different release, right? And here I only have initial release to branch off of, so I will just go ahead and do initial release. But in the future, when you have more and more different version of different releases, you can specify which release to branch off of, and you will see the selection under here. This is demo, but you can specify the goal for this release, define the business justification for why you're creating this release, and you can set the due date for this particular release has to be completed, and you can select the owner. I'm just gonna go ahead and say I'm the owner, and you can add approver, okay? And then, so in other words, this release, I'm the owner, but this release won't be completed until the approver approves that release, and then you can add the approvers, but I'm just gonna go ahead and use Paul. So first thing I did was to create decision service, so that I can keep track of the change that as that unit. And now I created a new release. And so I want to get started working on that release. First thing you do is create change activity. Okay. So because the whole reason why I created the release is because I branch off of what's being already there, and I need to start making change to get ready. Activity name, I don't know, defect fix 1, 2, 3. I'm just making that up. And here you can select, you can specify this is where you document, so that everybody else in the team would know what this change is for. Something like that. Well, obviously, you can do something more fancier, and you can even create hyperlinks and so on. But I'm just gonna leave it as this. And approver, I'm just gonna keep Paul, and I'm gonna assign this work to Bay. So let me go back to release. So that activity that I created, defect fix 1, 2, 3, is here, okay? Because it shows up under activity tab for my release. And I'm gonna, so defect fix, this is, I mean, you can name it however you need to, and whatever you guys decide as an organization. But you will see the for the release, I'm the owner, in progress. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create validation activities as well. So I can say functional test. So I'm lazy, I'm just going to pick in the same people. But so again, same concept. This is where you're going to put the meaningful information about the activities. So now, if I click on work, I'm Abu, and there's nothing under work, okay? Because I'm the owner, but I have nothing assigned to me. So I'm gonna bring up another decision center. Okay, I'm gonna. If you remember, so this defect fix that I created, okay. So this is a change activity, I'm going to change the role, so that's therefore change activity. I'm zooming up so you can see. As you can see, so I'm the author, and Paul will be the approver. Okay. Abu is the owner of the change activity. So here, I logged in as Bay, and if I click on the work, so I see defect fix. Okay, I should have changed a little bit, but so I do have all those activities that are assigned to me. I don't know. I'm gonna make some change to the rule. And so here, you probably see the difference. We'll talk about. We will see compare and timeline options. I'm gonna click on edit. I'm just gonna change it to 10 to 15, and then end. And so when after you make the rule change, you will write comments on it and create new version, or you can just cancel. Any better. So one thing I want to show you is I mentioned earlier, now you have a compare features. So you can compare. Unfortunately, I just made a change just now, so I only have two versions to compare. Compare the one that I may change it to the original version. But if you have more versions, you can specify exactly which versions that you want to compare. Okay. So now I get to see what has been changed. And another nice thing is, like, if you want to, you can restore from that version. So again, so they did make quite a bit of enhancements to the rule designer. Exit out. So so another thing is that, for instance, another enhancement that's been made is that, let's say I want to create folders, and you couldn't make a folder before, but now you can select here. You can either go to new, and you can create new folder from here, and what would be the root you can select. I'm just gonna create subfolder underneath. So now what I've done is created new folder underneath of the general. And also here you will see the same options. You can create new and create new folder, and very much the same thing. You just select the root from where you want to create folder from. So this is nice enhancements that were made. So now I'm done. So from here, I should zoom up a little bit more. So on the right hand side, I remember I'm in the defect fix change activities, and I'm the author and I'm done. So I'm going to select finish working. So now it's finished. So I want to go back to so I did refresh. So now this side, this browser, I'm logged in as the owner of this change activity. So I know that it's been finished. So I'm going to go ahead and say proceed to approval. In other words, I'm notifying the approver, which is Paul. I'm asking him to go ahead and approve, review and approve. I have IE too, but for some reason my IE doesn't necessarily like Business Console sometimes. So now when I log in as Paul, who's the reviewer, approver, and I will see work assigned to me. And defect fix, 1, 2, 3. Do what I have the review I need to do, and approve change, and approve. So now the status has been changed to complete because it's being changed. Whatever the rule change work needed to be done was done, and approver approved it. And similarly, okay, so if you come here, the defect fix, now the status is complete and now ready to push it to the QA and test that. And it works pretty much the similar way. Okay. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing. It'll take time, but so I'm in a validation activity now, and I can click on add a test plan, and here I will say whatever, and similarly I can put link to whatever the real link, and you can do so. And here also whoever again, this is to set the description about what is the validation process that your organization have in place. And this is a place you can keep track of the validation, the testing activity that's been done. And whoever do the testing, I'm assigned to the testing, and I can say I'll pass the test result, blah, blah, blah. So you can define that information, and anybody can view all that. So this is where you have the trace of all the validation activity that's been taking place. Okay. Again, similarly, I can say finish working, and same thing. So I'm not gonna, because I'm pushing the time, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but timeline. Will show you all the change that's being made. Where's my scroll bar? Okay, my Chrome doesn't show me the scroll bar. Oh, there you go. So here, typically you will go through a long period of time. You can select, you can sort it out and go to certain dates to view activities that based on the date specifically that I just created the whole release today, so I only see today. But so you can keep track of who poll, created, merge, defect fix, approved, so on. So all this gets logged, and so you can see the comments and whatnot, all the information. And then once everything is done, you will the owner of the release will go ahead and then give the complete process, and it goes into live. So this is I know I went through it pretty quickly, but this is the decision service framework that's being introduced in 8.5. So this out of box, like I said, all I did is just did the custom installation. I didn't do any other additional steps to configure this. This is part of the product already. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Okay, I'm pushing time. So, like I mentioned, I have so much to talk about, so I know I'm kind of rushing through. But I encourage you to play with that tools, and I will come back and show you where you can get the samples, and you can do the tutorials and so on. So let me quickly go through rule editor improvements. I've already mentioned it when I did the demo, so I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. So the decision table, if you want, when you're editing decision tables, before it's just in a business console, all option you had was edit, start edit and edit and probably details or something like that. And you didn't have any other flexibility to make change. But now the rule editor is much better than before. You will see undo, redo options. This is great. This is something we all wanted. So now undo, redo option is there. And if you right click, and you will see copy, paste, insert, all those functionalities, all this editing features are there. And you would do it will do insert, remove row columns, and copy paste, and you can even create values that goes into the decision table in Excel and copy and paste into the rule editor. So it does have many nice capabilities to make your rule authoring life a lot easier. Especially like when you think about decision table, it has many entries to it that it can be really hectic if you have to manually type in all the values for each cell, each column and row. So you can just, if you already have tables documented in Excel, you can copy and paste into the rule editor. So you will see that it's a lot nicer, especially the main thing is, to me, is undo. So rule version comparison I showed you earlier. I only show you just a straight rule, but I showed the screen capture earlier. You can compare the different rule version comparison so that you can see visually what has been changed, and you can detect whatever that's been made much quicker. And I mentioned about the restore option in when I did the demo. So restore a version from a comparison. When you do the comparison and you say, oh, I might want to revert it back, so you can do the restore. You can compare about rules and decision tables, and you can compare all parts of rule artifacts. Not rule text is what we saw, properties, decision table column definitions, and preconditions. This is pretty much similar. So this is what we saw, except I did much simpler rule. But so you can view the comparison, and I mentioned about restore. And if you do the comparison of decision table, again, it will highlight what has been changed, including the precondition portion and all the cell values that's been changed. And I showed you about new folder, creating new folder. This is really nice enhancement so that you can, when you write the rules, you can organize it better and you can put it in such a way that makes better sense to you for certain rules to go into. And also you can move to or rename existing folder. And you can restore from snapshot as well. So all those are nice enhancements that were made. It's really make your life a lot easier. So when you start playing with it, you will appreciate more about all those new features that we didn't have before. So I know I'm pushing time. Let me jump into REST interface and Worklight adapter. Okay. So now we do have REST API is available to work with to execute rules. So this really makes it nice that you can just do the simple REST integration, and especially being able to use REST API to invoke rules makes it a lot easier, because REST seems like that's the trend today, right? Many REST integration capabilities are provided for almost so many different applications, not just within IBM, but I see when I go to customer sites, they are trying to integrate systems through REST APIs. So seems like that's where we are headed. And it's lightweight. It makes it so much easier to integrate ODM to different systems, to client applications to invoke roles. And especially in order to just show how you can leverage this REST API is by looking at the integration with Worklight products. So I'll show you in a little bit later on. So REST execution API endpoints, typically it will look like, the format looks like the host name, where the server is, and port number, decision service, REST rule set part. So the example, so if you want to do post on the REST API on your rule set, your URI might look something like this. And so when you do the invocation through REST API, you have to, basically you put the payload in XML. Okay. So example, the request might look something like this. And again, so when you go into the, I'll show you in a editor, but actually, what's nice is that using HDS, I should have, okay, good. So using the HTTPS, you can select not just the web service soap, but you can do REST option, and you can just do view or download the WADL file, web service application description language. And also test portion will show you what the payload XML should look like when you do that REST invocation. So you can simply take that, use the client HTTPS testing, and you can take that sample payload from that testing. So this is what it looks like. When you select the rest and click on test, and here you will see how the request should look like. And when you click on the execute test, and it will say validation okay, and then you will see the server response portion. Okay, so here you can test it and how it works. So where we take the advantage of this REST API is Worklight sample will show you how to leverage that REST API. So those of you who haven't heard of Worklight, it is the IBM application that really allows us to create mobile apps. And so we are IBM. You will hear more and more discussion around cloud, IBM, BPM, ODM on cloud, and also integrated with Worklight and integrated with IIB. So you will hear more and more of discussions around this. So Worklight framework is really allow you to create mobile app, and maybe when you're creating application, mobile app, maybe you want to execute some sort of business rule from mobile app. So you can leverage the REST API to invoke rules. Okay. So the benefit of this is really to allow the ODM execution be available to mobile environments. And many customers started to asking us about Worklight and mobile app, how we can enable some of the BPM or ODM capabilities to mobile devices. And quickly, Worklight framework, it has Worklight Studio. Again, it's Eclipse-based development environment, and Worklight Server and Worklight Application Center. So App Center, just like if you have iPhone like I do, you will go to App Stores to download whatever the applications, right? So basically the same thing. Worklight Application Center is like the app store that you have on your iPhone or iTunes kind of things. And everything, so we do ship sample, and I'll show you, I know I'm pushing the time, but I'm going to show you where you can get that sample from Sample Console. The 8.5 shipped with what we call Worklight adapters for ODM. It will give you step-by-step instruction of how to set it up. But you can simply download the Worklight Studio from IBM site and follow the instructions and set it up. What happens is you just simply, the development cycle on the ODM side is the same. Still use Rule Designer to author your rules, and mobile side, and it will use the Worklight Studio to do the app creations. And when you deploy it, the Worklight mobile application will consume your rule through REST API. So when you go to the Rule Studio, Rule Designer, launch sample in tutorial sample console, and from there under Decision Center, you will have Worklight ODM adapter, and it will load up all the sample solutions and sample rule projects that you can look at the code and how it's being written. So this whole tutorial contains both role projects as well as the Worklight Studio side of code that you're gonna import into Worklight Studio. Okay, so this is the Worklight sample role project side, and here Worklight Studio, you can select Android phone or iPhone and whatnot, and it has test simulator so that you can test and see how your mobile app works. And you can, when you do so, you will do the configuration on the Worklight Studio side about where the decision server is, put the URL, and then you would make the connection between Worklight server and rule execution server. Let me see. So it's just a sample. It will give you simulation. So here, I'm running out of time. So let me quickly show you. But I will encourage you to look at the Worklight sample, because I'm sure more and more customers are going to be asking you about Worklight integration with ODM. Okay. So here, what you're going to do is go. I know it's small, huh? So there are two different ways to launch the sample console. So if you are in a rule editor, you can just go to Windows and open Perspective and select Other, and there you will see sample console. Or you can go into Start menu and All Program, IBM Sample Server, and then there's a sample console. It's same thing. Either way you want to launch it. If you already have Rule Designer, you can go to sample console. So here you will see all different samples and tutorials that you can see. And under Rule Execution Server, you will see Worklight ODM adapters. Okay. So here you will have view instructions, and you can select that link to import project. Okay. But go through this instruction. It will tell you exactly step by step how to set up not only the rule side, but it will tell you how to set up the Worklight Studio. So it really gives you the chance to play with both sides and get the feeling of where you might be able to take advantage of the Worklight talking to rules, executing rules. The sample they have is things like they will detect from the mobile devices side, Worklight will detect the location of the customer and will fire off, send that information to the rule side, ODM side, and say, okay, so you are within 20 kilometers from that location that towing service is not provided, something like that. So it will give you really nice idea and sample about how you can use leverage the REST API of ODM. Okay, sorry, time's up. I knew I had so much that I needed to talk about. So that will end the quick delta on what's new in 8.5. Okay. Sorry, I know we are running out of time. If you guys have a question, I guess
yes,
we can try.
Stacey, let's just open the lines, and if anyone has any verbal questions, now's the time.
Certainly. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your touch-tone phone. To withdraw your request, press star 2. Again, to ask your question, please press star 1. One moment, please. I show no questions at this time.
Okay. Yoko, thank you very much for taking us through this presentation. It is a lot of information. I know you didn't get through everything in as much detail as you may have wanted, but the slides will be available for everyone to review out on Partner World. So thank you again very much for taking us through this.
Thank you.
As a reminder, the recorded webcast, the transcript, and the slides will be posted to the IBM Media Library for IBMers and to Partner World for partners. If you would like the slides before they are posted, please send me an email. This ends our Tech Talk for today. Have a great day, everyone. Stacy, back to you.
Thank you. This does conclude today's presentation. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.